right. Hey, everybody. Here we are. Welcome to another episode of Queen City Healthy Sex and Relationships. I am Dr. Sophia, and I'm super excited to welcome my guest today. We're going to have a great conversation, Lisa and Andrew Reichel, and they are the proud founders and owners of a wonderful resource that we have here in Charlotte, but also to serve everywhere, um, for a wonderful home that is a resource for sex addicts and partners and families called Room to Heal. And I'm just really excited to have them here with me so that we can learn all about them and Room to Heal and just really come together today around the hope and the possibilities of what really high quality, effective recovery can do. And their story is amazing, and it's also there's a lot of pain and there's a lot of hard work, but that's what good recovery is about. And I'm just really happy to have y'all here. Thank you so much. And let's just start a great conversation around Room to Heal. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, we're really excited to be here. Appreciate you having us on.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I know we've been trying to get this scheduled for a while, so I'm glad we finally got it together. So, if you can just, however feels comfortable and natural for you, just let us know how y'all got here.
Yeah. Well, do you want to kick it off by just letting them know what Room to Heal is and then where the idea came from?
Yeah, so Room to Heal, it's a recovery residence specializing in men battling porn addiction, sex addiction, love addiction, really intimacy disorders of all kinds. And we've got a really strong support programs in place for partners as well. This is a place for guys to come and really learn how to live a life in recovery,
Mhm.
build a rock solid foundation for recovery, develop new habits. Really, we provide the environment for guys to heal at a neurological level, but then also really get to the root causes of what's driving, these unwanted behaviors that have really kept them stuck for a long time.
Mhm.
Uh,
And Andrew is a certified recovery coach, and then all of the men in the house also have a therapist.
yeah.
So, and make sure that every partner of our residents has an advocate and a coach, and she also gets that support. And I think you'll see in our story, where this all came from. So do you want to start it off?
Yeah, I mean, so really, Room to Heal is born out of our own personal journey of really for me being sick for a long time, um, betraying those that I really cared about. This one, and and really what worked for us and what we've seen work for at this point almost 50 people over the past 4 years.
Mhm.
So I went to my first 12-step meeting in 2006. Met with therapists, tried some, IOP programs, weekend intensives, and really nothing was working. I tried to get married to get better, and that marriage lasted a very short time. And I just got worse. I kept getting worse. And it really wasn't until I finally got 100% honest with what was going on and where my struggles were. Yes, pornography, but also there was some deep betrayal. My wife, I was having an affair, and I went to an inpatient treatment center in Mississippi for 2 months, and even after that, was still really struggling. And I found out my affair partner was pregnant, and ended up going to this little sober living home named New Beginning Ranch in Montana. And it was there doing life with other men battling sex addiction, porn addiction, that I really learned how the levels of vulnerability and authenticity, required to really begin to heal from this thing. And Lisa, to her credit, was really leaning into her work of recovery because I was her second marriage as well. And her first husband also cheated on her. So I'll let Lisa take it from here.
Yeah. Um, it was it was really devastating to experience that a second time. But I think what it did is it led me to see that there was some brokenness within me that needed to be addressed. And so it helped me when he went away. I had the time, I had the space to really focus on what do I need? Where is this brokenness within me that led me to want to be in relationship with somebody who wasn't well. And I could see then the red flags that I had missed. And I was really grateful that we were able to have him, go to the recovery, go to inpatient, and then go to sober living. It just gave me that space where I could grieve. I was in a situation that was really tough. A lot of women think, oh my gosh, if he's in love with the affair partner, is it over? And I was kind of in that situation where he did say that he loved the affair partner and was considering being with her. And that is like next level devastating. But at least I knew that while he was there it was time for him to think and figure things out. And I was kind of in a wait and see period. An amazing part of our story and what I'm learning now in the research is that we really had to let the first part of our marriage die. Um, while he was away, that died. And I even look at pictures now and I'm like, those are two different people. And I had a great group. I had lots of people in my church that rallied around me. I really felt so blessed. I also had somehow the benefit of no one looked at me and said, walk away. As crazy as our story was, everyone was just supportive of me, and I really appreciated that. And they were just, holding my hand as I went with the wait and see approach. And he really showed up different. He had that time to wrestle with, like, why do I think I need to be married a third time? Like, where is this coming from? He could finally see the pattern that he needed to see to get healthy and not repeat the past again. And so he was new to my nervous system. He felt better when he got back.
Yeah, in my story, I grew up in a home. I was the oldest of four kids, and conservative, good Christian household. Parents, are still together and love each other to death. But I really didn't have much agency growing up, and so it was really important for me to finally get to this place of I got everything out on the table. I was done trying to present a certain way, and I really moved into this place of full honesty, not 98% honesty, not even 99, but like everything was on the table. I wasn't lying. I was honest about, oh, well, I'm in love with my affair partner. I don't want to leave her. And I was also able to say, I'm really sick and I know I'm really sick and I've been really sick for a long time. Like, and that to that place where both of those things existing and being true and allowing, unfortunately, Lisa and I was given the opportunity to wrestle with that. And in the process of wrestling with that, I kind of stepped into this place of healthy agency and recognizing that a lot of my wounding came from this place of not having a voice, not understanding that I did have the ability to make choices in my own life, and that I could choose one thing or another, and that I didn't have to be controlled by my pathology. And so it was an incredibly powerful time getting this time apart for me as well, even though I deeply missed our son, and even though there were consequences, and that I have another son that is down in Florida that I've never met, and that hurts. And my gosh, I made the right choice, for me. It was for me because I wanted to respect the person that I deep down wanted to be, um, and so the time apart really was this catalyst that led to incredible change in me that continues to bear fruit, change in Lisa. And I was back. We'd been in counseling for over a year. And we did we have Rose? Rose was in.
Yeah, Rosie, we got pregnant like 3 or 4 months
Oh
after we
gosh.
got back, and I
Yeah.
was just, we were rebuilding trust. I'm not going to say he got back and everything was rosy. Well, our daughter's name is Rosie. But we were rebuilding trust, right? One
Yeah.
marble at a time. Brene Brown's marble jar analogy. One marble at a time, we were rebuilding it. At least we weren't at a deficit anymore. The resentment was gone. Yeah, and then 3 months in, we got pregnant with Rosie, and I was like, oh no. But it ended up being the biggest blessing. Our whole family was made new again with her. We were just a different unit, and we're different people. It's just amazing. I think we were so blessed to have missed out on the trauma that happens for these couples after discovery. It's just living in those times where there's so much gaslighting and there's just blame. And I think that we missed out on a lot of trauma when you went away.
Yeah, I mean, what I see in a lot of the guys that we work with is, very emotionally young, right? And so even when they're willing to face this and deal with it, when they get activated and triggered, by the normal daily disagreements that come up with just being in a marriage, uh, and it activates them, and then they get small or get too big, right? And then they trigger their partners, and then it's like this little mini T, small T re-traumatizing that can take place. And so I think the time apart really helped us miss some of that, and we were able to kind of press reset. I think Rose in a lot of ways symbolized, Lisa getting pregnant with Rose, it kind of symbolized this rebirth of our relationship. Um, but it was about a year and a half in of me being back, and Lisa looked at me and she goes, there needs to be more places like where you went to in Montana, and maybe even more specialized for this struggle, and we should open one. And I was like, you're absolutely crazy. We are not doing that. That's nuts. And I was wanting to buy a business that was, already on its feet and doing well. And Lisa just felt very convicted at probably a soul level that that's not what we should be doing.
Yeah. And a lot of it had to do with the women that I met in group.
Mm-hmm.
I was in several groups, and during the time he was away, of course, they were looking at me like, oh my gosh, her husband's in love with the affair partner. Her husband got her affair partner pregnant. Like, I feel bad for this woman. She's been through so much, but like, we were able to make so much progress when he got back. And 5 of the 7 marriages that were in that group with me who had maybe, less trauma, less acting out, they didn't make it.
Yeah.
And they wanted those marriages to work so bad. And I was like, what did I have that they didn't have? I had space from him. What a gift that space was.
Yeah, and to your credit though, Lisa, you did something with that space.
They did too.
Yeah,
Well, they would have capitalized on that space.
yeah. Well, Lisa really was intentional with her time, and she really leaned into her therapy and the recovery opportunities that were afforded to her
Hmm.
from healing with very real betrayal trauma. And I want to make sure it's very clear that when I got back, we still had a lot of work to do,
Hmm.
and I still have a lot of work to do. Our marriage is by no means perfect,
Hmm.
and I can say that we are honest with each other. There are no secrets. And I feel known at a level that I didn't know was possible. And I think, I don't want to speak for you, but I think you feel that as well.
Yeah.
Right? We're two flawed people that are doing life together, and we show each other grace and challenge each other, and are known by each other. And it can feel very safe and very scary at the same time sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the same way for both of us. I mean, I love my parents. They're still together, but they didn't model a lot of good, healthy connection. And so Andrew and I were on uncharted territory together, trying to rebuild. And relearn what a relationship looks like. And, I would never wish what happened to us on anyone. Um, but I don't know that we would have ever gotten here if our lives hadn't been leveled by it. And so I, you know, it's crazy, but you know, we are Christians. We don't force that on anyone, but I, along the way noticed so many blessings that, kept us going, and
Yeah.
grateful for that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I
Okay.
know we're talking a lot, Sophia, so give you space to lead
Yeah,
in.
well, I just want to say thank you to both of you for sharing all of that and really letting everyone in to what your experience was, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And there's a lot there that I know we've talked about maybe doing another podcast time together so that we can dig into that because there's 8 things I've written down that I really want
Yeah,
to dig into. So
yeah,
I'm just going to pick and choose a couple of big ones, and then we'll, more to come later. But I just have a couple of questions for each of you. Um, I think I'm going to start with you, Lisa. One of the big things that I heard you say was that you needed that safe time apart. um yes, you did. You have a very deep awareness. I agree with Andrew to look at yourself, which we all have a hard time doing, and somehow you instinctively knew that that was something that you needed to do, and um so that you could heal regardless of what was going on with Andrew, right? But
Yeah.
that you needed that time on your own with him being able to be unhealthy as he wanted to be somewhere else that
Yeah.
was safe so that you could do everything you needed to do for yourself to figure out what was happening and also heal. But that, what y'all are referring to is that the home that you were in Montana was that safe place for you. Like you knew where he was, you knew who he was around. You could just sort of put him in that, healthily compartmentalized place so that you could bring in your safe resources to yourself. And I
Yeah.
just was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about how that experience was different for you, say if Andrew had gotten an apartment, or I can see that it
Yeah.
obviously was different by just your face. Yeah.
Yeah. Can almost feel the anxiety creeping up, right?
Yeah.
Um, it was so different. I just feel for these women because, you know, there's a loss of total control over your life when you find out there's been this whole life he's been living and not letting you in on. So you just, from the beginning of this betrayal trauma process, you lose control. And then usually the only sense of control you might be feeling is you're trying to control the chaos. You're in fight or flight. Like, what is he looking at on his phone? Is he continuing to talk to the affair partner? And even if he's telling me he's not, is he? Because how can I trust this person who's been living this alternate life? There's not this honesty switch that goes off, you know? And so, is he seeing her? It's just there's just so many variables. How are we affording this separate apartment? Did he sign a 12-month lease?
Yeah.
Is he worried about rebuilding, or is he just working on the next phase of things and leading me on? It is almost impossible to focus on yourself. I mean, so many of these women we talk to, it's like, did I remember to brush my teeth today?
Yeah.
Like, did I get out of bed? You know, it, it's just, it takes me back. It's
Yeah.
a horrible place to be.
Yeah.
yeah. I think having that safety of knowing exactly what he's doing, because the partners know the structure of our program. They know the rhythm of our program. They know that we're tracking where these guys are going on GPS, right? So we've got Life 360 on all their devices. So instead of them constantly feeling like they have to manage his recovery and is he doing this, is he doing that, when they can hand the reins over to us, right, and really surrender that piece, and trust that we are going to hold him to doing the work. And if he's willing to do the work of recovery and lean into the structure, the scaffolding, if you will, that we have in place, so we can really start building a healthier life, there's a lot of safety that comes from that. And even just that can begin to help shift the relational dynamic, right? Where it's been maybe parent-child, um, and and even that in and of itself is really powerful. Yeah.
The partner empowerment aspects of our program are where we differentiate. When Andrew was in his sober living environment, I never spoke to, the person leading that. And when I came out to visit, he was great and answered any questions I had, but I wasn't part of that process at all. And we are all about empowering partners from the very beginning. Because she's in that situation, she knows better than anyone what she would do, what she would keep track of or monitor. And so we take all of those insights, and if she needs additional accountability, if she wants us to keep his car keys at night, we're going to keep those car keys at night. We help her figure out, is there a bank account that worries her? Is there a credit card that worries her? Like, how can we create an environment where she feels safe? And we do that from the very beginning, and then give her a coach and a voice, and we moderate those conversations and include her. And we just learn so much by seeing them interact together. We see where the work is, and help them find that safety to do the work in therapy.
Yeah, the rhythm of our program when we're working with couples is, we want both parties to have their own therapist, and then I'm doing coaching. We love for her to do coaching as well. They work on at the very beginning, they work on something that we call an intentional time apart agreement, where they're really laying the boundaries and the groundwork for this time apart. How often they're going to communicate? Does she need access to these bank accounts? Like what Lisa said with the car keys. And then when it's ready, and usually it can be 2, 3, 4 weeks, when they're ready, her coach, her, me, and the guy in the residence, we all will meet. And so we can see the relational dynamic in play in real time. And we call them couples connection sessions. And those have been instrumental at helping me see, the guy's pathology. Where does he go when she gets activated? And vice versa. And so we've seen a lot of really powerful change come from just being given access to the relational dynamic in real time.
Because you take that pathology too, and it presents in the groups with the men.
Oh yeah.
And so we were working on his communication skills, like things to do when he's feeling triggered and heightened so that he can respond. We've done the IRCM training with Carol Sheets. So the help her heal, help them heal. So we're using those techniques that Carol teaches to help him show up better and differently. And hopefully, as those couple connection sessions progress over the weeks, that we start to see more trust being built. We're seeing them do better, together.
Yeah, that sounds really effective and helpful. I'm curious, Andrew, what do you think makes I'm gonna, really name this as like a therapeutic home, such as room to heal, different and maybe more effective than going away to treatment?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it really depends on the person. I think, a lot of guys, if they're really, really in the acute phase of their addiction, sometimes getting away can be helpful. If there's just deep, deep, deep denial, sometimes, inpatient can be helpful. What I find more often than not, though, is um, when guys are able to work out their recovery in real time, when guys are in an immersive program like Room to Heal and still experiencing real world triggers and stressors and learning how to unpack those every day with their fellow residents, because that's what guys have to do with our program is every night they're checking in. Um, they're able to really figure out what tools of recovery work well for them. What are the things that really trigger them and activate them? I think it's I don't want to say easy, but it's plenty of guys can go to an inpatient treatment center and get sober, right? But I'm very firm in the belief that sobriety doesn't necessarily mean they're in recovery,
Right.
right? Um, and
What is the difference?
well, I mean, sobriety means you're just not doing your bottom line behavior, the
Yeah,
behavior that's in
you're
trouble.
celibate.
But the term dry drunk exists for a reason, right?
What do we really want? What tell the wives what they're really looking for, what they can expect. What does recovery
Well,
look like?
I want to stay on I want to stay on track to Sophia's question because I think it's a really good one, and I'll try to layer that in. But Room to Heal is a place where guys really learn how to do life in recovery while dealing with the real world. And I think if the adage the opposite of addiction is connection is true,
Mhm.
then I would take it one step further and say, living in connection
Mhm.
while you're actually really doing real life is probably a more powerful antidote to this than being sequestered away, right? In kind of this in not real world scenarios. So I think we've had a lot of guys that been able to get a modicum of sobriety at their inpatient treatment center, come back, relapse, still struggle, feel shame, feel guilt, then come to us and
Mhm.
really learn how to work out their recovery in real time. And so if I were to pair us with an inpatient treatment center for maybe someone who's just really acutely in it, which there's some really good 2 week intensives out there
Mhm.
that are less expensive than the 60, 90-day programs, which can be a fit for the right person.
Yeah.
But then they go 2 weeks there and then they come to us for 60 to 90 days.
Yeah.
They're able to work, they're able to see their family, as long as that's what their partner needs and wants, and really work this thing out so that it's built into the rhythm of their life, right? As opposed to you build some self awareness, you get some head knowledge, learn some psychoeducation, and then boom, you're hit by the real
Right.
world again
Right.
without having any practice in what works for you, right?
Yeah. That's well said. And so what I'm really hearing is that room to heal it's relational living,
Yeah,
which to me is what makes it different than a treatment center. There's a time and place for a treatment center.
very much so.
However, yeah, but room to heal is really much more about relational living, which is what we all need to be learning to do anyway. So I think that sounds just really lovely. A couple of quicker questions because we might be getting close to the end here. Let's say someone lives in California, or someone lives in New York. Can they come to Room to Heal, or do we have to live somewhere here nearby, like in North Carolina?
No, they absolutely can come, stay at Room to Heal. I
And
think,
so if they have a partner, they can do a lot of Zoom work together. She's still going to get a coach. The
mhm,
same things can happen.
yep,
Absolutely.
yep.
Yeah.
And what we find is sometimes we'll layer on additional meetings for the guys. A lot of guys can work remotely, and so
Uh-huh.
we want guys to work while they're with us.
Yeah.
I think learning how to deal with work stressors and
Yeah.
triggers is a really important part. So, we've had guys come stay with us that are, retired or semi-retired, and they'll go get a part-time job at Lowe's while they're with us, or they'll get a part-time job at, Chick-fil-A, and it's not so much it's being in some type of real world dynamic where the things that trigger you back at home are still presenting, because that's where we really want to dig in,
Yeah.
and
That's
so
so good.
yeah, and we'll have guys volunteer sometimes too if they still
Yeah.
want to work. There are plenty of volunteer opportunities in
Yeah.
Charlotte. that, 3 or 4 times a week they go volunteer,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
so
I
we kind
love
of
that.
create each person, we can kind of create a program within the structure of Room to Heal that works for them in their unique situation.
I love that. There's so much of that I want to dig into. And then what about if a gentleman is single? Is he
Mhm.
still eligible to come?
Yeah, great question. Absolutely. Absolutely. We've got a couple guys staying with us right now that are younger and single, and maybe some failure to launch
Yeah.
types
Huh.
where just this thing got a hold of them really young
Yep.
and really kind of became their answer to
Mhm.
life. And instead of really developing healthy coping behaviors and skills, this is just their answer. And so
Yeah.
what I love is you get, guys that are maybe in that position paired with guys that have maybe had some professional success, and we see them lean in on each other. We see them actually challenge each other. And I see the guys that are in their, 50s that have had some professional success learn a lot from the guys where maybe their emotions are more close to the surface, right? And then of course there are things that these, guys that maybe have struggled to land on their feet can learn from the guys that have had some success. So we encourage that. We want to see guys lean into each other and do life together.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
also want
Good.
to note that we can work with parents in the same way that we work with partners.
Hmm.
So bringing them into the process and helping them communicate better with their son and like figure out what are some of those relational patterns between them that are getting in the way.
Yeah.
So
I
Yeah.
love that. Oh gosh, I didn't know that. That's so good to know. Um, this is great. Why don't we finish with all three of us kind of naming, yeah, I love your question, Lisa. Like tell partners what do they need to look for in recovery? How is recovery different than sobriety or celibacy if we're talking about sex addiction? Yeah, Lisa, let's start with you. What are your biggest hallmarks of how did you know that your husband was actually either entering into recovery or was like landing both feet in a recovery and he was like really grooving in it.
yeah, well, I think seeing the defensiveness come down and the teamwork come up and being willing to listen
Mhm.
to what I needed and not take offense to it as much. That, that comes a little further in recovery, but I just felt like he was willing to learn and willing to try. There was just a shift in the mindset of like, I know everything, and this is who I am versus like, okay, I'm in a growth stage. I'm learning and I'm there's a humbleness
Mhm.
that comes with that.
Good.
If I were to really hammer down on one thing, I would say it's an adherence to honesty,
Mhm.
regardless of the perceived consequence to that honesty.
Mhm.
So, and a great example of that is we've had guys, who are with us have, some slips, and we've got a rule: any slips need to be disclosed to us within 24 hours. And and that's a great rule, I feel like, for couples as well. And when guys do that and we're able to unpack the slip in real time and learn from it, um, that's a big win to me. I view slips as opportunities. If they're in the right setting, the right environment, slips are incredible opportunities to grow in our recovery because we can learn so much from them.
Mhm.
So I would say that adherence to honesty at all costs, not hiding,
Mhm.
is so important. And I know a lot of partners have said, how I began to finally start trusting my partners because he would struggle with something and tell me, you know,
Mhm.
and not hide the ugly emotions or the dark
Yeah.
feelings or the sadness. I one of the things that came out of my recovery journey is I battled depression, and and that used to be something I used to hide. No one knew, you know, and I would hide it with alcohol, I would hide it with porn, like acting out, and And so really getting present with that was a way that I started to build trust with Lisa. Like, I'm not sure what's going on, but I'm
Mm.
feeling really down today, you know? And then going through the process of getting on some medication. And like, so that adherence to honesty at all costs, I think is the thing for me that I love seeing. Kind of that first thing that like, okay, we're starting to get it. Yeah. What
Oh,
about you?
that's so good. Yeah, I love all of that. So the honesty piece, the empathy, the willingness to listen. I think for me that's all important, but other hallmarks are when just kind of piggybacking more on what you said, Lisa, when an addict can really get outside of him or herself and be
Mm-hmm.
less self-centered
Yeah.
and less self-absorbed. Some people might call that, narcissism or narcissistic traits. That's fine if we want to think about it that way, but most people are not narcissists, so I don't love that term.
Yeah.
But when people are able to be relational, like we're talking about that word a lot today, you'll have to fit that somewhere in a tagline because I think it really fits.
Yeah.
Um, but being relational in the coupleship, well, in any relationship, it's really about being able to slow down and show up and demonstrate to the other person, you matter to me, you are important to me. And when we're in active addiction, that's a non-starter because nothing's important except for the addiction
Yeah.
and getting that need met. And, I think as a partner, um, when if a partner is like, I need you on Life 360, I need access to your bank accounts, I need blah, 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 for an addict to be able to respond and say, yep, let's make a list. I've totally got that. Like that non-defensiveness is
Yeah.
huge. Also, not finger pointing. Like,
Yeah.
if I'm gonna do this for you, what are you gonna do for me?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
that's a very addict thing, a very active addict thing to say. So those are a lot of the things I look for is someone who is able just to stop and slow down and say, yep, you're right. I get this. What else can I do?
Yeah.
And to not do the blame game and empathy and being honest and all of that. And humble is big. Humble's a biggie.
Yeah.
I'm glad you used that word. I don't think I hear that enough. And that I was just in a session talking about being humble, and that's an important word. So really being able to slow it down and be with the partner and her experience and understand, how she got there is really big. So you know, uh, partners, if you're out there listening, please, please make sure that you have lots of strong women in recovery around you because we all need not just the support, but we need the perspectives of different women who have different situations with different husbands who are all going through it differently so that we can learn from everybody. Like that's really important. And also to know that you're not in any situation that we haven't heard of before. You're
Right.
not inventing anything new. You're not alone out there. And then, addicts, if you're out there listening, I just really hope that you can also hear that there are really good options out there. Room to Heal, one of them. This whole idea of relational living and learning how to be functional um, and show up in life with life happening, like being able to work and to, you know, work on relationships and recovery. All that can happen at the same time if you have the right, good, strong men around you who are in an honest recovery. And you know, Andrew, you and I see a lot of people in recovery who have been doing recovery for a long time. And the key to really being effective at that is honesty. Yeah. And so, that is huge. Being able to really break it down and be so deeply rigorously honest is what really, this is all about. And it sounds like at Room to Heal, you know, because it's this whole relational living piece, it's a really safe environment for people to feel like they can be honest. And I love the way you said that, Andrew, of, in this kind of home environment, it's easier to get to that both and
Hmm.
of like, gosh, I know I want recovery, but I still love these parts of my addiction. Like being able to grapple with that in a safe way is key.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just excited that we've started this conversation. I hope that we'll have more to come, and y'all have been just so beautiful and wonderful. Thank you so much for opening up and sharing, and thanks for opening Room to Heal. This is a really amazing resource
Yeah.
in our field, and certainly so much needed. So hopefully there's more room to heal out there that's gonna be opened and be available to people. But
That's the
thanks for
plan.
providing this service. I really appreciate it.
And thanks for what you do too. I mean, I'm so glad that we connected. We just are so aligned in so many ways. And I just love that you're building this practice with other people with that mindset. So important.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've I'm so glad we've connected also. It's a good thing. And so thank you everybody for listening. We will talk much more with Lisa and Andrew in days to come and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks, you two.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.